Ordinary life moved on rails I trusted. The morning timer nudged the coffee maker, the heater coughed once, and our twins drifted through the kitchen like weather systems with mismatched socks. My husband trained for weekend bike rides, logging miles in an app that awarded digital badges shaped like thunderbolts. I ran a small design studio from the dining room and kept a whiteboard calendar bright with client deadlines and Lego Club. Sundays meant pancakes, grocery lists, and backyard repairs we tackled with more optimism than skill. We shared passwords for streaming and added silly icons to recurring chores as if play could keep the gears greased. The dog knew the sound of the garage and the exact minute it should thump its tail. Love felt like competence repeated daily, a system maintained by small updates. I wore our predictability like armor. Nothing in that rhythm suggested a second narrative was threading itself through our days just out of frame. Small disturbances arrived as harmless upgrades. He bought a newer bike computer and started charging it in the garage, claiming the outlet ran faster. His phone learned to nap face down, flashing notifications labeled with innocent icons, calendar bells, paper planes, stackable hearts that pretended to be fitness encouragements. Late rides stretched past sunset, and he returned with a fragrance our detergent did not make. A coworker's first name began orbiting his recaps of office trivia, drifting closer each week until it landed like punctuation. He switched to a brand of energy chews no one in our house bought, and a new water bottle appeared with a sticker from a cafe across the river I had never visited. None of it warranted accusation, it merely thinned the air. I told myself busy seasons bend habits and marriages survive asymmetry if you keep the calendar honest. First suspicions grew where routine used to anchor. He mixed up the twins' club schedules, confusing Lego Tuesday with Robotics Thursday despite color coding. Mileage on the car surged on weeknights with no corresponding errand, while a faint constellation of glitter clung to the back seat like confetti after a party we hadn't attended. He laughed at jokes that arrived as vibrations on his wrist and called his new cadence sustainable, a word he usually reserved for compost. A receipt from a boutique florist hid in his jacket lining, dated an evening he claimed to be fixing a flat on the trail. Even the dog began waiting by the window at unfamiliar hours, hopeful and then confused. I started writing dates in a pocket notebook labeled now, a quiet ledger to steady my breath. I was not ready to declare anything. I simply refused to keep translating coincidence into comfort. Tangible clues collect like pins on a map. The bank app showed small but repeating charges near the river trail, perfectly timed with rides that should have ended across town. A generic subscription renewed through a platform that bundles services for couples, though we already shared music under one plan. His training calendar filled with gray blocks titled Recovery and Planning, neutral words multiplying like rabbits. Rideshare receipts landed in our shared email just past midnight with pickups outside a townhouse I could not place and drop-offs at a boutique hotel that masked itself behind a parent company's name. The cloud auto-saved a blurry photo of cupcakes on a patterned tablecloth our kitchen had never seen, framed by a helmet I recognized. Individually, each line item could shrug. Together, they sketched a path I could trace with my eyes closed. I printed everything and gave the folder a practical name. Household. Verification required patience and bright light. I postponed a client call and sat in the cafe where the receipts congregated, a corner table facing the door like a witness stand. Cyclists arrived in small flocks, cleats ticking on tile, helmets tucked under arms. At 6:23 he rolled in with the coworker from Stories, bodies settling into unison without needing rehearsal. They ordered with shorthand efficiency and shared a pastry bisected like tradition. I studied posture rather than faces, the ease with which silence between them felt full. When they left, I followed only as far as the sidewalk and watched them split, then recombine, a choreography performed by people who no longer notice the music. I did not take pictures. I memorized the color of the barista's bandana and the way his hand hovered at the small of her back before retreating as if on a spring. Confirmation arrived from the same feed that had always held vacations and Halloween costumes. A mutual friend posted photos from a charity ride, a cheerful carousel of helmets, medals, and endorphin grins. In the fourth frame, my husband stood behind the coworker, shoulder tucked into hers in the intimate geometry of people who have forgotten the camera can count. A window reflection captured their overlap like a watermark, and the platform's auto tag suggested both names with algorithmic confidence. The caption mentioned a celebratory stop at the cafe I had staked out, and comments stacked hearts like confetti in a room I had not entered. I saved the post, not for spectacle but for sequence, proof that the pattern drew itself even when no one meant harm to me personally. The picture did not create the betrayal, it simply made the map printable and public. Immediate fallout sounded like careful sentences and hard edges. I made pasta for the twins, reviewed spelling words, and signed permission slips, preserving a perimeter of normal around their evening. After bedtime, I placed the screenshot, receipts, and a short plan on the table. The plan had verbs, not speeches. Separate rooms, communication limited to parenting and bills, consult counsel, and request a pause on mutual social tagging. When he came home, I described dates and locations like coordinates and directed him to the guest room until we formalized separation. I did not ask for narrative. I refused the role of audience. I called my sister to host a sleepover, messaged the school about pickup changes, paid 2 bills scheduled for morning, and set my phone to allow only family through the night. The house shrank into something safer. Morning arrived, and the plan still held. Cutting ties began with digital hygiene and doors. I changed the front door code, rotated passwords into a vault, and revoked photo access that allowed casual borrowing of our past. I archived our couple albums instead of deleting them, choosing documentation over erasure so memory could move on my timetable. The coworkers' accounts were blocked after I preserved what counsel would need, not as punishment but as a firewall. 2 friends received a neutral update and assignments, redirect curious relatives, manage carpool texts, so I could avoid becoming the spokesperson for my own wound. I silenced the charity ride thread and took the app off my home screen. Boundaries did not heal anything that week. They simply stopped the injury from traveling farther, the way a tourniquet buys time while the body remembers how to clot. For the first time in months, sleep arrived without bargaining. Legal and practical logistics turned feelings into sequence. The attorney translated chaos into drafts, temporary support, discovery requests, a parenting plan with neutral exchanges under bright lobby cameras, and social media guidelines that kept kid photos off performative stages. I opened a checking account in my name and rerouted direct deposit, then built a spreadsheet color-coded for essential bills with due dates and confirmation numbers. HR updated beneficiaries. The mortgage servicer annotated our file. The insurance agent split policies and sent fresh cards. I requested retirement statements and stored copies in a fireproof box beside passports and the deed. Calendars shifted into custody blocks described in plain, enforceable language. Stability arrived as case numbers, receipts, and passwords that belonged only to me. Each completed form closed a drawer that had hung open for months, dangerously loose, and the house exhaled like a system finally patched. Kids and family dynamics asked for honesty without spectacle. We told the twins that grown-ups sometimes keep promises badly and would now live in 2 homes organized to keep their weeks calm. Their questions were precise. Which nights, whose car seats, whether the dog could split time like a diplomat. I handed them a magnet calendar they could touch, a small lever of control in a machine suddenly louder than usual. Teachers learned enough to watch for drift, and teammates' parents offered rides without invitations to explain. At exchanges, we kept tones clipped and civil for their sake. I refused to export adult weight into kid spaces and banned the coworker's name from our living room. The dog adapted by rotating beds like an envoy. Laughter returned in cautious flashes, then more often, the way light finds seams in heavy curtains when someone remembers to open them. Rebuilding arrived disguised as competence. I replaced the porch light he always meant to fix, learned the ladder's balance, and discovered the quiet pride of a working dimmer. I scheduled medical appointments deferred by other people's emergencies and returned a tangle of chargers to the drawer with cords tamed by Velcro ties. At sunrise, I circled the lake until finishing the loop felt like a promise kept to myself on purpose. A weekend finance course returned authority to numbers, and I opened a savings account named Future Repairs, transferring modest amounts with private pride every Friday. Friends who stayed brought soup instead of strategies, and I practiced asking for specific help without apology. The folder of evidence slid into a drawer. The point had shifted from proving harm to practicing care. Identity followed behavior, quiet and durable, like a light left on for myself. Reflection organized itself into a story I could carry without setting it down in every room. Trusting had not been naive, it had been the contract. Breaking it had been a design, not a stumble. The photo did not destroy anything that wasn't already in peril, it merely published the draft. I decided forgiveness, where it sprouts, would be a clearance within me that refuses to store poison, not an invitation back to ruins. I would be civil in emails, precise in calendars, and boring on purpose in routines that protect the kids. When the feed serves me memories, I let them be neither omen nor instruction, only pictures from a time that has ended. Forward looks ordinary and therefore precious. Clear budgets, repaired hinges, early walks, and a door that locks because my hand knows the key. Hope returns as maintenance done daily, measurable and mine.